Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am AA Ron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Desiree Taylor. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Why don't you just start us off by telling me a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Desiree Taylor, and my mom was deaf with a progressive hearing loss, a nerve deafness, and when I was about 3 or 4, they found out that it was starting to happen with me a little bit. Got my first hearing aid at 9, and then around age 30, they let me know that for me, I had to make a decision about getting a cochlear implant. So I did decide to go that way, and now I am bilateral cochlear implants. So my whole life, I've really been dealing with hearing loss and deafness and all of that. So that's kind of where I've been with all of that.
Yeah. So growing up, did you have like a IEP in school, or did you have any extra help in school?
Actually, because I'm 50 years old, back then, they did not have IEPs and 504 plans and all the things that they have today. So really, they didn't know what to do with me. They didn't really have anything for people with special needs at that point, especially in elementary school. So they basically kind of stuck me in front of the class. And what happened was when I got my first hearing aid, I was 9, so I was probably fourth grade. Kids were pretty mean. My speech has not always been this good. Um, as my hearing loss has progressed, I have more, and it's not perfect now either, but much more nasally and slurred a lot. And the kids just made fun of me all the time.
Sure.
So I took my hearing aid off and said, "Forget this. I'm not doing this." So I put it in. Um, thinking that would solve something, not that it really did, but I put it in the log and I said, forget this. But then I went into my classroom and I sat down and I'm like, I got to figure out now how to hear people. So that's really where I learned how to lip read. No one taught me. I just stared at my teacher trying to figure out what she was saying. And
Sure.
um, that's kind of where I started to learn the lip reading. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm 48, so yeah, I don't remember ever hearing anything about special education or disability growing up. My daughter, Cecilia, she's 22, so after she was born, diagnosed with epilepsy and cerebral palsy, that's kind of when I first found out about, or I mean, I knew there was things, obviously, I just hadn't experienced it, so I didn't know all the different things that happened. So yeah, it makes sense that I mean, like I said, I don't ever remember hearing the word special education, IEP, disability in school growing up. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and my mom didn't grow up with that either, so she didn't
Right.
really know how to advocate for me, even though she was deaf herself.
Right.
My parents really didn't. Um, all of a sudden, they decided to put me into this classroom with special needs that intellectual special
Right.
needs, you know, um, which I love everyone with special needs. I love every person that's got a disability, and but it wasn't the place for me. They weren't really helping me with what I needed and accommodating me for the deafness part of it.
Right.
Because I still didn't understand what was going on half the time, and um, it just wasn't the right place. So that was the first time I think I've ever advocated for myself. I
Sure.
went down to my guidance counselor's office and I said, "You need to take me out of there because it's not the right place for me." Um, So they did. They didn't really do anything else for me, but they took me out of there. So it's really been a learning process too, even in trying to learn how to advocate for myself. Um, I didn't really learn much about that until I worked in a school as a special ed para. which I love.
Hmm.
It was so fun. But I learned a lot. I got close to the parents because I'm a pretty relational person, even though I'm
Hmm.
deaf. I love people. So I got to know the moms and tried to support them too. And one particular mom really helped me learn how to advocate. I really watched what she did with her son. And um, so I've learned a little more about that. Now, my younger son, does have the same hearing loss that I do because we have found out that it's a genetic thing
Okay.
for sure. So when we found out that he had the hearing loss when he was ninth or about 10th grade, I went in and I made sure he got the 504 plan and did all those things. So I did get to do that as a parent. So I took the things I learned
Right.
and was able to bring that into helping him.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. What is your definition of inclusion?
I've been thinking about this. My personal definition is really intentional uh, accommodating. Intentional. Shoot, I had this earlier. Sorry.
You're okay.
It's intentional getting to know the people and finding out what their needs are and their accommodations, and an intentional willingness to accommodate
Hmm.
and meet the needs of a person with disability to allow them to be included, even if it doesn't look like everyone else, that they can be a part of what's going on.
Right.
I think that's really my personal definition of it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, everybody, for me, it's always was, my daughter needs certain things to be able to be successful, but I mean, doesn't every kid need, every kid learns differently, has different things they need to be successful. Let's just give everybody what they need to be successful intentionally. I love that. I mean, I remember growing up, I mean, we didn't call it, coping skills or anything. I remember I always chewed on pen caps or doodled in my notebook. And looking back, I feel like that's ways that I coped or how I, was able to do something to get some energy out to stay focused in school. We didn't call it that, but I feel like we all kind of do certain things or need certain things to be successful.
Hmm. Absolutely. And you have to know people to do that. Like,
Right.
you have to get to know people. And I think even people who have the same type of disability, those with autism, even those, I mean, deaf people, we're all varied and
Yeah.
everyone does things differently and has different needs. So you really have to personally, um, get to know that person and what they need and to be willing to take the time to do that. I think that's a big thing because what has bothered me the most over the years is that they're okay with me taking the time and the effort to care for them or to love them, but most people don't have the patience or the willingness to take the time to get to know me and what I might need and to be able to go the extra mile to help me be a part of things, especially socially. That's been a big thing.
Sure. Yeah. Can you maybe explain if you're gonna, let's say you're invited, I invite you over to my house for like a birthday party or something. What is something or some things that I can do to, make your experience better or more inclusive?
Mm, I know that's tough. Like, because I can do some sign language, but most
Okay.
people don't know how to
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
Um, So I do lip read so people can really look at me,
Mhm.
talk a little slower. If I miss something, to be patient if I have to say what a lot, um, or ask me, "Are you getting what's going on?" My husband will do that for me. "Are
Okay.
you understanding what's going on?" There's always, I mean, people type things out these days, so you can type things on text, you write things down, just care that I'm a part of it. I think that's the biggest thing is just to help me not, um because I think for some of us, we can kinda start slinking into a corner. When my husband told me that, I kinda slink into the corner and I don't socialize. So you have to kind of if I don't do it intentionally, but I do it just kind of subconsciously, but to kind of say, hey, come be a part of this too, like
Mhm.
things like that. So those are just simple things, you know. They don't take a
Right.
lot of time. They just take intentionality, like I said, you know.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, if you go, I mean, let's say you're coming over to my house to a party, would you want me to like share with people that you are deaf, or would you, is that something you wouldn't want everybody to know, just personally?
Well, you know, I used to not want people to know, but now I do. I tell people up front, and if like right now my programming has been kind of hard, so my perception has been difficult. So I've been having to tell people when I go into situations, even beyond that I'm deaf, because you can say deaf to people, people have no idea what that means.
Right.
They don't. So I have to kind of get a little more specific and say, you know, if you talk from behind me, I
Right.
won't hear you. Um, or things like that. So I think that's very important because it's easier when people know. I
Right.
used to think it was embarrassing for people to know, but it's almost more embarrassing for them not to know, really.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point because yeah, if I want you to understand what I'm saying, I need to be in front of you so you can probably read my lips or that. So yeah, that's important to share for sure. Do you want maybe want to talk a little bit about? I think you wrote a book, right? Do you want to talk about your book?
I did write a book. It's called Created to Relate Living Beyond Religion. It's about my journey from growing up in a very legalistic religious place to learning about a relationship with Jesus. And I include a lot of my how my hearing loss has played into that as well. Because church is another place where I really are trying to help people understand what's needed for people who have a hearing loss and deafness as well. Um, so there's lots of little insights in there too from my hearing loss journey. But it's mainly about my story about coming out of legalism into that relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. I think I read over a little bit of your stuff this morning, and you say legalism, but I mean I think part of that is Baptist. Is that correct?
I did grow up Baptist, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up Baptist also, so yeah, we were in church every time the doors were open and couldn't do any of the fun stuff like play cards or go to movies or any of that stuff. So I think I have similar background to you in that area.
Yes, they were very, so much more about the behavior than the heart of a person.
Right. Absolutely. And part of my journey with that is, I mean, my daughter diagnosed with epilepsy has a disability, and I mean, I heard a lot of messages, a lot of verses, and the pieces about when you get to heaven, you're gonna have a perfect body, and different, verses I learned about as a kid, and then having a child that's been diagnosed with a disability that I had to kind of rethink or think about those verses in a different light. Did you have anything like that where you had heard a lot of verses or certain messages taught to you, and then when you're trying to work through your own disability, where you kind of had to look at it in maybe a different light?
Mm, that's an interesting question. I think I've had to really look at, actually, you know, the different ways that people have looked at people with disabilities.
Sure.
You know, that somehow God made a mistake when he created us
Yes.
this way. And I don't think so, really.
Hmm.
I think the more that I learn about who God is and even about who he says that I am, I think that people with disabilities are here with so much purpose.
Hmm.
And um, I worked with a lot of different kids, and I have some friends who have children with Down syndrome. And just one of them the other day, you know, just the sweet, um, they just bring different perspective. I've had a lot of friends say to me, wow, you know, they learn from me because when I started hearing things, I just appreciate the things I've missed. when I hear something, like, I share it. I'm like a child, like, in a sense, um, like, I just sit. It's so exciting for me, and I think that, for so long, I heard more like I was broken, I was different, like, there was
Mhm.
such a focus on that, and, it's just kind of the cross we bear, but I don't believe that. I believe that God has a much bigger purpose for us, and if people took the time to get to know people with disabilities a little more and really see what they added to life,
Right.
they would think a little differently too, and maybe even see God a little differently, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. There's verses, I'm not going to say them correctly, about the one where they asked Jesus what the parents did that the child, I think, had a disability, and he said they didn't do anything. It was to show my glory or something like that. That's not exactly the quote, but
Mhm.
something similar to what you're describing. They didn't do anything, and they're here just to show who I am. So that makes a lot of sense to me too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing, really. It really gives us a better perspective of who we are too, and not to make it we don't feel we shouldn't have to go around feeling like we're broken or there's something wrong with us.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So what are you said you kind of transitioned from more of the legalistic to more like a personal relationship? Do you maybe want to share like what are some a little bit of that journey, or maybe moments or things that you came across, or how you kind of got toward the more personal relationship versus a legalism?
Hmm. Well, I think one of the things I've had to kind of let go of is perfectionism, because when there legalism is you
Right.
got to do everything right and to a T, and you know um such shame and failure, feeling like a failure because I can't do things perfectly, and then you add the deafness in there, and it just adds a whole other dynamic. Like, I can't even do certain things, forget perfectly, and that was a hard one. I think the day that I really understood that I none of us will ever be perfect. We can't live up to that standard anyway. That's why Jesus came.
Hmm.
And that was such a freeing thing for me. Um, and I took that into all things, as I'm studying the Bible and learning about who God is, and in prayer and in relationships and everything. Um, it gives you a lot more grace towards other people too. I think in dealing with other people with different personalities, with disabilities, whatever it is. Um, so that was a big moment for me. And then, it's just that Jesus cares about my heart. It's not just what I'm doing and not doing. To get out of that checklist mode, um, and to really just care for my heart, and that's what he cares about. Those were big things, I think, in that process.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about the perfectionism thing, I struggle with that too, and I guess I never connected it back to the church stuff, but once you were talking through it, it made a lot of sense because yeah, I have the same feelings of yeah, I have to be perfect, or if I do stuff, it has to be like 150%, and it's if I don't get it perfect, then I'm hard on myself. I'm getting better finally of not getting down on myself, but yeah, I see where that connection probably came from. Yeah, it is true. Like it's not right, but your brain is still like I'm 48 years old and still trying to do things perfectly. Like we need to get past that.
It's a hard habit to break. It
Yeah,
really is.
it is. I mean, I went to church so much, like I can go back into a church with like uses hymnals, and I don't even have to look at them. I can start singing or verses. Yeah, it's it's crazy how much that stuff's still in there somewhere, even though you don't maybe think about it every day.
Yeah, it shows up in so many different places, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I grew up well, obviously, same as you. Where I mean, I have tattoos now, so I mean, I that was not that was frowned upon growing up. So I mean, still, if I go into like a church, I wear long sleeves because I just can't go into a church
Oh,
with my tattoos exposed, which seems silly, but I can't do it. I mean,
Well,
God doesn't really
I
care,
hope
probably.
that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
You're good.
I'm sorry that you still feel that way. I hope that you can walk in one day without it on and not worrying about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's weird. It's just yeah, it's one of those weird things though. It's like it just feels weird, so I just don't do it. But yeah,
That makes perfect sense. So, my
yeah,
son has tattoos too.
yeah.
So.
So what did it feel like? You've gone through like your journey of losing your hearing in your life, and then to find out like your son had the same thing. Like maybe do you want to talk a little bit about how that felt for you and how you kind of worked through some of that stuff?
Yeah, that was hard for me. It's, it's a catch-22, because I know that my hearing loss has made me a better person in a lot of ways. It's made me who I am, and my life isn't terrible because I have a disability. But I also know the struggles, and I know the work that it takes, and I know all of that, and
Hmm.
we just don't wanna see our kids have to go through the same thing. So, I think it's like anything. I had to grieve it really
Hmm.
because I was hoping he was old enough where they had just told us actually 6 months before this happened, the doctor had told us that he was out of the woods. So
Oh.
there was another piece to that. Um, so mentally I said, "Okay," because we had been watching all along. We get
Hmm.
to this place, they say he's fine, and then 6 months later, we're in the doctor's office and he's lost half his hearing.
Oh.
And I'm just like, "How did you not know that, really?" But so I was a little angry too,
Right.
and I had to deal with some grief, but then, but I walked with him. I'm like, "Okay, so this is what it is," and just started helping him get what he needed, and, we talk, and he's the one that really took to the sign language. I have 2 boys, but he was the one that really kinda took it and did pretty well with it, so, um, just helping him have the skills that he needs and to encourage him. And I think that he's watched me too. He's watched me learn how to advocate because some of these things I watch him doing on his own already. So I'm really thankful for that, that somehow I've been an example to him. Um, and I'm there when he has a hard day. He knows he can talk to me because I understand
Hmm.
in ways that other people don't. So
Sure.
there's some great things in that too. Um, but it's been a journey with that, but he's doing pretty. I can't believe it's been 10 years since we found out.
Okay.
So he still has the hearing aids, and we've talked through, what he wants because I didn't want him to feel like just because I got the cochlear implants that he had to. Like
Sure.
having those conversations of what do you want to do?
Hmm.
What do you feel is right for you? Because it's not for everybody. Um, I wanted him to make his own decisions, and I do believe he's probably going for that because he had his hearing longer than I did too.
Sure.
So, there's things in that I don't understand because I don't really remember a lot of ever having full hearing, whereas he does.
Sure.
So, um, but it's nice that we can do it together and that I can be what for him, what I would have wanted to have.
Yeah,
So
that's great. Have you and or him been able to find like a community of other people that are have hearing loss to connect with or share stories or just hang out with?
they're really hard to find,
Okay.
actually. We have not found a ton. I have, um, occasionally along the way, I find someone, he does not have anyone that I know of. So that can be tough because we really don't have a lot of people around
Hmm.
who understand or have the same issue, unless they're older. There's older people, but it's a whole different type of um, place than just losing your hearing as you're getting older. So, which I don't take away from because then you've had your hearing a long time and that's hard. But so, no, we don't really have a real community that way.
Okay. Yeah, when my daughter was younger, we connected with the Epilepsy Foundation of Minnesota, and it was nice to just be able to go to watch a movie with everybody or go someplace where you didn't kind of have to explain the whole situation to them because they were going through similar things. So yeah, for us, it was nice just to have that space for us for sure.
Yeah, it helps when you don't have to explain all the time. That can be exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. When you have to every place you go explain the whole story, it's like okay, I'm sick of saying this thing 25,000 times. Can we not do that? But
Yes.
for sure. How can we use empathy to be more inclusive?
Um, well, I feel like even if we don't know someone's experience completely, I think empathy is really important just to try to put yourself in someone else's shoes or how do you can I feel like with the deafness part because a lot of things is we feel left out a lot of times because we the communication issue is a big thing. Um, you can just be in places and feel like you're completely alone. So I think I try to help people understand things by giving them some practical ways. Um, but empathy is just, I think it's key. It's number one um, to be more inclusive because if you don't have empathy, then you don't even, there's not a real desire to even want to help people be included.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. What is one tip you can share to help the listeners be more inclusive today? So just something anybody can do starting today to be more inclusive.
Well, I really encourage people to be aware of their surroundings. Be mindful of who's around you. And if you see someone, I think the big thing is don't run the other way. Look at someone in the eye and say hello. Don't be afraid of what you don't know.
Right.
Um, I think that's a big thing. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I like it when people ask me questions, but sometimes people feel like they're being rude when they ask
Right.
questions or insensitive. It actually feels more insensitive when people aren't willing to talk to you or they go the other way. So those are a couple things, especially, just even if just smile, make a little effort.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting about the question part. My daughter, she uses an electric wheelchair. So, I mean, little kids, they have never seen him before. So they'll come up to and, start climbing or asking questions. And parents are like, don't bother, don't bother. It's like, no, I want them to ask questions about her wheelchair. So then when they get older, they've seen it and they know what it is and they're not scared of it or stuff. But yeah, parents sometimes are like, don't ask, don't jump, don't climb on there, don't ask questions.
Yeah, they do. I think that that's a big thing. I see that all the time.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about, or where can people find your book?
I'm sending people to my website. Mostly, it's www.arenewedcreation.com. I blog and have weekly blogs, monthly newsletter kind of on
Okay.
there. But the book is also in Kindle form and in audiobook. I did do the audiobook
Okay.
myself in my own
Okay.
voice, which was cool. Um, but you can get that at Amazon.
Okay. So for how did you do the audiobook? You just like read it somewhere and recorded it? Is that how it works, or how does that work?
I actually had a young adult girl because I love working with the young adults at church. One
Uh-huh.
of them is actually trained in doing some of this stuff.
Okay.
So I went to her house and we knew each other. So she helped me. She accommodated me. She listened for me on that aspect, and we worked together and did it together. It was fun.
That's cool. That's awesome. You ready for the last question? Do you like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
Hmm. I haven't had it in a while, but yes, I've eaten it many, many times.
Yeah. I asked that question because I live near Austin, Minnesota, where they make spam and where the spam museum is located. So I've been asking all
Really?
my guests just to see what they say.
That's funny. I grew up on it. My mom used it a lot.
There you go. Well, if you ever want to see the Spam Museum, you got to come to Austin, Minnesota. So just don't come in the winter, probably, but otherwise it should be good.
Oh, I've never seen Minnesota, so I think that would be fun.
Yeah. Is the best place for everybody to connect with you on your website? Is that the best place to connect?
Yeah, the best place to connect is on my website.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.